Hello, everybody. It's been quite a while. It's Gmash Speaks here. Thanks for clicking on that link. Thanks for tuning into my Gmash Speaks series as I take us through the Census's 9 Toolbox Kit. We are currently on Toolbox Kit number 6, which is the sunlight peel. This is going to be quite an interesting pill to take you guys through, and because of the information I want to put across, it's quite a lot of information. I've had to break this down into 2 sections, but I'm going to start with a rather interesting scope. Okay, but before I step into that interesting scope, let me just take us through what exactly we are doing here. So it's a 9 toolbox kit, of which I've broken them down into 9 pills. So it's 9 tools in a toolbox kit called the Census's Toolbox Kit. And now we are creating new conversations. We are taking us into a new level of socialized thinking, or better put, a new tribe. So once we go through the whole of the 9 toolbox kit pills, it will bring us to a point where we believe we've achieved success. So we are now on the sunlight. Sunlight is what we're talking about. In completing this, we will achieve, like I said, success, which is the optimal 5-star health and well status that it is my intention to bring everyone who listens to this podcast through. Okay, that's the ultimate goal. Right now, I'm going to talk about a few things that might not be things that we hold on too closely to, but these are fundamental truths that I would like to share. And the first truth, the first interesting and thought-provoking statement I would like to make as I push us through this particular podcast is that getting sunlight for 15 minutes a day will reduce our risk of heart attack and stroke by 25%, as we can see on the screen right now. Having said so, it's important to note here that older people are at a much higher risk of a chronic illness because they are more socialized in the systems built into our consciousnesses by big pharma, big foodie. By foodie, I mean the food industry, and also the telecommunications industries, to mention a few. These are huge monopolies. These industries literally control the world economy, if I were to put it that way. Obviously, there are other industries, the financial industry, the services industry, but I've just highlighted 3 industries here, which are quite huge. Now, the reason why the older ones are at higher risk is because the younger ones still play in the sunlight without the nonsense of SPF sunscreens. That is another huge, big pharma scam. I'm not going to go into that now. I have a podcast which I have actually spent time discussing about the sunscreen scam. But having said so, I could just interject quickly here that there is a new industry called the cosmeceutical industry. It's an emerging field in the industry which has blurred the line between traditional cosmetic products and, your guess is right, pharmaceutical drugs. We are taking off the gloves for this one. We're pulling back the drapes and looking into what and where we are not meant to look into. We are looking through cracked gaps. And I need to mention this here. There are other tribes across the globe, new tribes being formed, and they are being formed not through the conventional route, but they are doing this through the grassroots. By that I mean that the front door has been paid for. It has been locked and blocked by the big players in the industries. When I say the front door, your conventional method of getting through to people, your conventional method of socializing a group of people. It's already paid up, it's exhausted, it's manipulated, it's monopolized by the big players. So we're left only getting through unconventional methods, which is why I've set up this series of podcasts, or set up this new tribe, because the big industry players, they've put out way too much money for them to pull back now. Okay, so my point of take here is that our wealth and health success depends on what we do going forward. This is like a war, but it's not a war fought with weapons. It's a war to recover our lives, and we can only do this through resocializing ourselves. That is what I believe. Okay, and putting that in perspective, and I'm going to digress a bit here. At one point in time, big pharma created a drug called Repatha. It's a cardiovascular disease treatment, petrochemical nonsense. It's a drug, it's a pill that has been approved or was approved by the FDA, and its intention was to slash the levels of LLD, low lipoproteins, which is actually a carrier, but it's been called bad cholesterol. Okay, so that particular drug, Repatha, was created to reduce this so-called cholesterol, LDL, below 30, which is well under the 100 that is usually considered ideal. And using that particular drug, being prescribed that particular drug, will actually cost every user of that drug $2.4 million. This is huge. $2.4 million to prevent a single heart attack, and $7.5 million to prevent just one stroke. You will need to be addicted, hooked on this, and have to use it for life. Those figures are huge. This was when it was first released, which is quite a while back. So now let me put it more into perspective in our current day. The current bestseller being manufactured by Big Pharma to treat cardiovascular disease. If you're on a statin or know somebody on a statin, you will know a drug called Lipitor. It's the best-selling drug in the history of pharmaceuticals. It is the biggest pharma product that we have now in the industry. It's the biggest one competing with a natural product, a natural drug. It's the biggest one competing with sunlight in preventing one of the biggest disease of all time. And I'm not referring to the current COVID-19. Nothing to do with the how do you pronounce that? Coronavirus. Nothing to do with the coronavirus, beg your pardon. If Big Pharma could put this particular tool or this particular pill, the sunlight pill, if they could put it into a pill, okay, it will be the biggest selling drug of all time. So please stay tuned, listen carefully, and get sunlit, or better put, get sunlighted by what we're going to discuss and we're going to take you through. So welcome to series 006. Is the sixth tool in the Synthesis Toolbox kit called Sunlight. This is going to be a rather interesting one and could be well longer than I would ideally want it to be. If you can hang in there with me, then we can both enjoy or get the benefits of this particular pill. So let's look into what's currently happening in the world today. Today is the 16th of March 2020. The current affairs now before us is the one that has caught everyone's attention. Coronavirus 19, otherwise called COVID-19. So I want to talk about this before I dive deeper into my Sunlight Toolbox Kit pill. Today I checked the WHO website, and these are the basic protective measures against this new coronavirus. Firstly, WHO says wash your hands frequently. Secondly, maintain social distancing. I think that's about 2 meters or 3 meters apart from a possible carrier of the virus. Avoid touching your eyes is the third one, your nose and your mouth. And then practice respiratory hygiene. The fifth protective measure, as recommended by WHO, is if you ever have a fever, a cough, and if you are experiencing a difficulty breathing, you should seek medical care immediately or early. And then lastly, we've been told to stay informed and follow advice given by your healthcare provider. Now, these guys are acting like they're cute, they're clueless. No, they are not. I mean, these are the 6 precautionary measures they've given to us. However, as far as I'm concerned, the most intriguing piece of information that has gone so viral, though it is unauthentic, it is not been approved by WHO, it is not been said to be a possible preventative measure for this virus. However, it's still so impossible to ignore this particular protective measure being peddled by people who's gone viral on the social media. And this is what it is. I've seen it displayed in so many platforms that this new virus is not heat resistant and will be killed by a temperature of just 26 to 27 degrees centigrade. That's about 77 degrees Fahrenheit, thereabouts. So basically, what they're saying is that the coronavirus hates the sun, doesn't like the heat. Okay? And here I'm saying we can use sunlight to improve our health for free. I make another bold statement here. Sunlight is free. It cannot be patented. It cannot be monetized. It cannot be packaged. And it cannot be monitored by the FDA and WHO. These are the gatekeepers to Big Pharma and Big Foodie. Big Foodie here, when I say Big Foodie, I'm referring to the soon to be, well, the Monsanto and Bayer, who I believe are going to very soon monopolize the food industry. So when I say Big Foodie, I'm referring to the Monsanto and the Bayer marriage, which happened in 2016, where Bayer bought Monsanto for $66 million. Okay, so these people can make money by bottling sunlight. So they're going to make sunlight irrelevant or inconsequential to our health. However, experts say sunlight and heat limit growth and longevity of viruses generally. I'm not going to say do just that. Do that, but observe proper hygiene. And when you do both, then you get more effective. So GMASH says differently. We say and believe that physical exercise, lots of quality water, high quality nutrition, and hence improved immunity, zero stress if that is possible, and yes, wait for this one more item, quality sleep are unheralded daily habits that will make us optimally healthy and more effective in staying above the ills of viruses, germs, diseases, and what have you going around. That's what GMASH advocates as a total package. We cannot isolate one and then You can't pick one and isolate the others. You need to do this all in tandem, do them collectively. So I just cannot get away from this rumor that the coronavirus hates the sun. I just can't. So while we are still on that, and before we go any further, the objective is, after I go through with introducing the 9 tools in the Synthesis Toolkit, we will then delve into creating and listening to 5-minute podcasts on all these 9 pills. This is the 6th pill in the toolbox kit. And during my launch on the 15th of March, of February, beg your pardon, I mentioned that I would like for each of us to have 3 things on our minds whenever we listen to any of my GMAT Speak series. And these 3 things that I would like for us to always consider are this: what do we know about, or what do we know now about sunlight? What do we need to know about sunlight? What can we do with what we get to know about sunlight? Those are the 3 things I'd like to have behind your mind as you go through this particular podcast. And you can go, please check out my launch podcast on my website. The website address is www.gmashspeaks.com and also www.georgemashigo.com, or you can check my YouTube channel, George Mashigo, and then you can replay certain truths that I actually mentioned during my launch, quite a number of them. So let's get into our Synthesis Toolbox Kit. Now, I did mention earlier on, due to the length and the amount of information that I would like to share on this vast pill in the Toolbox Kit, I've decided to break this down into 2 parts, the A part and the B part. Now, the A part, I'm going to stop somewhere, and I'll let you know when I'm about to stop on that particular one, somewhere around where I talked about poor quality sleep and how our sleep needs to be attacked. And when I stop on that, I will then introduce and continue with the B part, and I will take it off from how to improve your sleep. And these are both in context with sunlight. However, I will suggest that you listen to both podcasts in order to get a better view on this rather interesting pill in our toolbox kit. So let us step into the 6th pill and the 3rd S in the Synthesis Toolkit, Sunlight Part 1. As I go into this particular toolbox kit, this pill, there is a day in the history of mankind that forever changed the course of humanity and also the destiny of our health. This day, I mentioned during my launch, this day was on the 4th of September 1882, when our lives were changed forever with the creation or the creating of what I call second daylight. Okay, the light bulb was switched on, and hence we had automatically second daylight. Of course, it's not a bad thing, most definitely not. However, before this particular creation of man or invention, there was very little insomnia before this time. After the light bulb was switched on by Thomas Edison, everything changed. Literally everything changed. So I'm not going to dwell on that right now, but I will say to you, look out for the series of my 5-minute podcasts where I will chat on some of these changes and how it's actually affected us and how we can prevent, how we can reverse those things. So to put this in perspective, we humans never fully enjoyed, or have not and will never enjoy, the full benefits of sunlight after the 4th of September 1882. We will never enjoy. Okay? Why am I saying this? Why am I making such emphatic, bold statements? Nighttime exposure, by virtue of the fact that we had electricity formed or created on the 4th of September 1882 when the first light bulb was switched on. Nighttime exposure to computers, tablets, mobile phones, TV screens, the list goes on and on, sabotaged our sleep, literally destroying our sleep in the process. I mean, you're going to ask me how. Now, remember one thing, that your nighttime exposure, when you have your lights on at night, it emits light that actually imitates, replicates, and stimulates sunlight, thereby in doing that suppresses your sleep hormones. Now I'm going ahead of myself, but I needed to drop that at this point in time. And I'm going to make another bold statement here. And by the end of this podcast, I would like you to ask yourself if you do agree with me. Okay? This is my bold statement, and I stand by it. One of the main products for the prevention and cure of the biggest and the leading cause of death is sunlight. There is a lot that the dark side of Big Pharma do not want us to know with respect to sunlight. They want us to know as little of it as they can, and even strangely, and as a paradox, they also want us to know a little about their medicines and medications, the stuff they call petrochemicals, that nonsense pills that are given to us. I'm not against drugs. I'm more against the application of drugs, okay, and the wrong use of drugs, which is the third biggest cause of death globally, called iatrogenic disease. Okay. Now, Big Pharma has created a means in which we will not be able to understand so many things, even about their own medications and about their medicines, by creating Latin or bringing Latin into the medical field and coining medical terms in so many high-sounding names that even a lot of medical practitioners don't even understand, how much more a layperson like myself and yourself, but if you're a layperson. So it's quite interesting, and it's of note to mention that the whole idea is to keep us in the dark, which is the opposite of sunlight. So if they can keep us in the dark, then obviously we are going to remain in the dark. And that essentially means we stay in ignorance, which in itself is a choice. My favorite book, it says, "My people perish and are destroyed for lack of knowledge." So I did say, and I'm going to repeat again, that one of the main products for the prevention and cure of the biggest and the leading cause of death is sunlight. And I will say in conjunction with that sunlight has been given to us strategically by the creator of the earth as a means for survival, as a means for optimal health. So you ask me, am I on cheap drugs? GMAT speaks, what are you on about? How can you make such a bold statement? But I can make such statement because I am here having the guts to put out this podcast because I've reversed my chronic illness, and I have the premise to share insights and practical tools that I used to effectively reduce my biological age by at least 10 years. Reverse, reduce, whatever. I even say it's more like 15 years than 10. And that's why I have the effrontery to share this podcast with an audience that I'm so privileged to have listened to this. So why sunlight? Okay. Why are we having this discussion? Now, because of sunlight and some other 7 tools thereabouts in the synthesis tool box toolkit tools that I have used personally over the last 2 to 3 years in my recovery. I have the guts to say this, even though I say it tongue in cheek, that I can effectively take on a good number of 25 to 30-year-olds to a long list of physical challenges. In actual fact, I dare any 25-year-old to take me on. I'm not sure I can take on a 20-year-old or 20-year-olds at this very point in time. That'll be pushing the boundaries on optimal health just a bit too far. However, if there are any 25 to 35-year-olds who would like a 1-hour challenge, then come on. However, you will first need to get this physical challenge request through my PA. That is if you find one. I don't really have a PA. Right. Sunlight. Why sunlight? Let me take us through a journey in everyday living. Okay, while you look at that screen, let me take us through a peculiar journey, okay, which we all experience daily, well, most of us. Let's assume that this screen that you're seeing is a movie, okay? It has a purpose. And here are some of what sunlight gives us as a movie, okay? We all do watch one or more of either movies, soaps, sports, adventure, educational, religious, musical programs. I mean, the list goes on and on, okay? Right? We watch one of those. Most of us have subscribed to a cable or digital network that provides us these services, right? Or perhaps we feed off watching these things on the online platforms. So here's the thing. Here's my take. What makes the entertainment industry flourish is the amount of views, the number of tune-ins, the number of clicks, number of downloads, the likes, the shares. Basically, what I'm saying is that the bigger the audience to a content, be it through the TV channels or through cable channels or be it through social media, the bigger the audience to a content, the more money that is generated. And I'm sure we all got that. Now, let us look at a scenario where a subscription service such as Netflix or even a free service provider like Hulu or Tubi, if they want to increase their footprint, if they want more subscriptions, okay, they want more people on their network, and that's what basically is the core of their business. The more we get, the more money we make. That is what all even big, small business, that's all they're about. That's all what we want. So they need to adopt strategies to get us more hooked up to their services, whether they be free or not. And for me, this is where the penny drops. And I'm going to continue with that scenario that I just painted now. And so please stay with me. So Netflix, after spending a lot of money, finds out, now they're doing some thorough research as to how they can make more of a footprint in the industry. They're trying to find out who their biggest competition is. So they spend a lot of money to find this out. And then they find out that this competitor is killing off their business drastically, and something needs to be done urgently. Otherwise, they will not realize the investment or their targets or the promises they've made to their shareholders and investors. Okay, so they need to do something quickly. Now, in painting this scenario, I want to thicken the plot just a bit more. Now, Netflix finds out that this competitor is the same competitor that is also messing up even their own direct competitors, such as the free services like Hulu, Tubi, Amazon, and affecting their own competitors' global market share. So it's them discovering that there is an enemy. Now, ever heard this phrase or this proverb? Now, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Right? We've heard that. It's an ancient proverb which suggests that two opposing parties can or should work together against a common enemy, right? We understand that. And I always like to say that if there's no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm. So, after spending a lot on this research, Netflix, Hulu, Facebook, Amazon Prime Video, Walmart, Voodoo, or the other competitors to Netflix, then find out who this common competitor is. The common enemy that they find out is an enemy that lives with each of us. And that enemy is sleep. Sleep. Yes, sleep. Sleep is taking a huge chunk of the social media and viewing audience. And like I mentioned, this competitor is also a competitor to Netflix's competitors. So that then makes Netflix's enemy, sleep, also an enemy to all other service providers that seek to make money and revenue off those of us who sleep. So what am I saying here? The more that we consumers sleep, the less views, the less likes, the less tweets, the less Instagram postings, the less TikToks, the less Facebook chats, the less social media interaction, and the list grows and grows and grows. So essentially, sleep needs to be attacked. Now, this particular tool I'm talking about, sunlight, has got no direct correlation with sleep. However, the correlation or the connection between sunlight and sleep is so eerie that I will do sunlight a huge injustice without bringing in sleep. I made a podcast, I believe it's podcast 004 on sleep. Please go listen to it. It just gives an overview of my take on how we can utilize sleep to enhance and improve our optimal health. So without consumers realizing it, there is an attack. That's when I say consumer, I'm talking about we, myself, yourself. There's an attack on one of the most free commodity alongside air. Oh, and I believe I did mention in my podcast on eugenics during my introduction that our air, the oxygen we breathe, is just about to get attacked and polluted so that we become more sick and depend on vaccines. Guys, coronavirus is a respiratory disorder of virus or illness. How about oxygen or air being attacked, like our respiratory organs have been attacked through a flu-like virus like coronavirus? How about if oxygen is attacked? I'm not going to digress, but watch out for my 5-minute series on how oxygen and water will be manipulated to make us sick. This is coming. It's in the mail. It's coming to us soon. So guys, you will really need to forgive me. I keep getting pulled off my main discourse because there's just so much I desire to share to this new tribe of ours. So I'm going to try and keep my focus and try to get back to sunlight. So as I was saying, that we, the end consumers, don't actually realize it, that there is an attack on one of the most free commodity that God has given to us. And I did mention air also being a free commodity, just like water. There is an attack on this commodity that no one can charge and monetize. You can't charge, well, people do charge for you to sleep. People do charge for you to get quality rest, but that's because you've gotten yourself into a position where you've compromised your health to now solicit for these external aids. Sleep is free. You're meant to sleep and rest for free. My favorite book mentions sleep for the very first time in a very profound way. It says God placed Adam into a deep sleep and formed Eve from one of his ribs. Essentially, God built the concept of rest into his own creation. He established the pattern of regular rest when he set aside what we regard to be the Sabbath day for his people to rest. So whatever day you set aside is your Sabbath day. God created that from the inception of creation. So sleep is essential, and sleep is connected to sunlight. So the sixth part of what we're talking about here is sunlight. So I've introduced sunlight, okay, essentially to us. And I'm going to delve into more of this. There's a lot I want to talk about. This is the part A of sunlight. I've spent about 35 minutes. I'm going to take a stop now, and I'm going to introduce to you the part B. So in closing on part 1 or part A, and as earlier mentioned, and as I regularly state in my introductions to the 9 tools, I will be sharing a series of podcasts on sunlight information that I have learned from others. Information that I have personally used in my life to reverse my chronic illnesses. This sunlight series will create a discourse in our minds about how we can optimize our lives, change the narratives in our lives by using the sunlight, which I call the sunshine vitamin pills daily, so that we ensure that we manipulate and use the knowledge and share the knowledge to create and rewire our minds in order for our minds to become the general and our bodies become the soldiers. Because, as I always say, when you think good, you feel good. When you feel good, you do good. Now let's flip that. When you sleep good, you feel good. When you feel good, you do good. When you have sunlight in a good measure, guess what? You feel good. And when you feel good, you do good. So this is a part 1 or part A. Next up is part B on sunlight. Please check the website www.gmaspeaks.com, or you can check www.georgemashigo.com, and also my YouTube channel, also George Mashigo, for the podcast coming after this one, the part B. After the part B, the next interesting item or pill in my toolbox kit is the sex pill. But before I go into the sex pill, I need to exhaust my overview on this particular podcast. And once we progress through the 9 tools in the Synthesis Toolbox Kit, then I'm going to defragment each of them. And I'm going to have 5 minutes, I'll try and peg it to 5 minutes, podcasts discussing very elementary and applicable truths that we can use to enhance our quality of life. Thank you so much, guys. Please look out for the part B on sunlight. It's got a huge amount of information and beyond what I've shared just now. Thank you so much, and God bless. Bye.